Just an overview about Global Hemp Association. We have a number of these events. I host 8 to 12 of them a month about all different topics. This is our education series. I host these every Thursday at the same time, and we break down all different topics. This Thursday is obviously banking and payments. I've also, as you guys noticed when you logged in, submitted questions to different subjects or topics. I've now started to compile those, and we'll start really focusing on different subjects that you guys are asking for. So please don't hesitate to share specific topics also that may come up that you want more information about, or if you want help making connections in different areas. We are membership based. It's $75 a month or $750 a year. It really helps keeps our lights on and keeps this going. We also have a number of other groups that we're going to be beginning or starting that are more roundtable discussions to kind of help move specific projects along as we've really put these pieces together. One more piece that I'm really excited about is we've secured a software or a platform to help us in this and help build connections on the back end, where you guys will be able to log in as members and actually make connections based on who you are and what you want to share. So I'm really excited about that. But with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to both Ross and Tom to introduce themselves, share a little bit about what they're doing, how they got into the space, and then I'll go through questions. Again, if anything comes up, don't hesitate to raise your hand or drop questions in the comments. But from there, I'll turn it over to you, Ross. I'm excited to have you guys.
Thank you, Mandy, and thanks to all of you who have joined today. Tom and I really want this to be mostly Q&A, so we address the questions that you have, but I will share a little bit about our bank and just briefly about me. My title is Senior Vice President for Hemp Banking for Westtown Bank and Trust. Our bank is headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, because that's where our holding company is headquartered. We're part of a broader holding company, all of which is financial services related. We are not your typical brick and mortar bank. We've been around for almost 100 years now. But our only branch is in the Chicago area because that's where our bank started almost 100 years ago. That said, we can and do work with businesses all over the country. We do that with electronic applications. We provide for mobile deposit of checks just with an image, wires, ACH transactions, really a number of different ways that we can help customers, again, all over the country. One thing that we like for our customers to know about our hemp banking program, that if it's not unique, it is different than I think most other banks, and that is that it started with our bank's CEO. Our CEO had the vision to have a hemp banking program in our bank, and we like for folks to know that because our employees and our board through and through are committed to our hemp banking program. And all that is to say that nobody's going to walk into our boardroom one day or into our executive suite one day and say that they didn't know about the program or didn't understand it. There's full commitment by all of our executives and by our board and our compliance team. And we like for folks to know that because we know that in not many cases, folks have had banking relationships that have ended abruptly, and we want folks to know that's not going to happen with our bank. And we even went out and trademarked the name Hemp Banks here to send that message. Just briefly about me, I became very interested in the hemp industry after the 2018 Farm Bill. Was working for another bank and was working with hemp customers. And in the summer of last year, Melissa Marcel, who's on the call now, who's our COO, reached out to me, and I joined the bank in late September, largely because I love the hemp space, and this provided me the opportunity to be 100% focused on it. So that's me, and a little bit about Westtown Bank and Trust, and I'll turn it over to Tom and Lineen to talk about Westtown Payments.
Thanks, Ross, and good afternoon. And so I'll do the same as Ross as far as talk a little bit about Westtown Payments and then my history, but I'm actually flip it around a little bit just to tell you a little bit about myself first. And I've been in the payment industry since 1998, so a better part of 23 years. I've been on all sides of the industry, started off in the gateway space, worked for some of the largest processors, and then as an ISO or broker, and then now as a bank partner, bank employee with Westtown Bank and Trust with Westtown Payments. And as the name kind of assumes or hopefully relays, is that we are part of the bank. We're not a ISO or third party. So, when you're working with us and working with Ross and his team, we're all part of the same family. And so that's probably one of the most important things we want to stress today, and we do in all of our communication, is that we are one, and we're all moving in the same direction. And to Ross's point, with Westtown Payments, our business, I tell a lot of people, I say it's one of the easiest jobs I've ever had, because I just follow the bank, and knowing where the bank stands in the hemp and CBD space makes my job very easy. We know, how comfortable the bank is. Therefore, we become very comfortable with forwarding, processing, and looking at new models in the space. And so, we're just happy to be here. I happen to be based, I was just telling Mandy, I'm in Utah. I'm based in Utah. The company is based in Raleigh, and we have a team because, frankly, of COVID, we've been able to hire and maintain employees throughout the U.S. So we have a very remote business set up here at the payment side. But again, we're supported by the bank in Raleigh, and we're really excited to be part of this industry.
It's always funny to me when I get on a call and I'll say, well, where are you at? And they're, oh, we're in Utah. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? You're right in my backyard. So I'm really excited to have you guys here. And I'm excited that we have progress, and I'm excited that things are opening up so we can actually connect and get together. So coming soon. But again, I'm going to remind you guys, if you have any questions or anything you want to share, please don't be shy. Go ahead and raise your hand or drop comments in the chat box right here. But I'll just kind of get the conversation going and move things along, get the questions or discussion topics going. Let me see if I can find our questions. So one of the top questions that was asked is about funding, mergers and acquisitions. Can you speak a little bit to that, Ross, about what is your bank's involvement, and are you funding right now?
It's a great question. Questions around funding are some of the most frequent questions we get. And I'll start with a broad answer about funding, and then speak a little bit about mergers and acquisitions. The broad answer is funding in the hemp space is still a challenge. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody on the phone, or on the call. But I do see that getting better over time, and there are a number of reasons that it's a challenge, and has been a challenge. And one of those is industry specific. It's an industry that is still considered to be high risk by banking regulators. The other is not as industry specific, and that is that a lot of the businesses in the hemp industry are fairly new businesses. And lenders, and I don't want to speak for all lenders, but largely businesses, banks, and others that extend credit want to see some track record from the borrower. And because of the hemp industry really being one that is re-emerging, there are just a lot of businesses that don't have that track record. That said, we are starting to see businesses that have been around for a couple of years and are starting to have a couple of years worth of track record. That's a tailwind. Another tailwind for financing is that the SBA now has protocol for lending in the hemp space, which is helpful. And I think a lot of folks don't know that, but the SBA does allow for SBA loans in the hemp space, so that's helpful. Most of the loans that we entertain to companies in the hemp industry are government guaranteed loans, USDA or SBA loans. But it again is very helpful to have that backing protocol from those programs. As far as mergers and acquisitions, I mean, we would entertain that just as we would entertain a loan for any other purpose. The key elements of that are going to be the same that we would look at for pretty much any other credit. What's the cash flow? Who are the principals? What's their experience, and what kind of personal strength do they bring, including the ability to personally guarantee? And then what's the collateral? We always look for the primary sources of repayment to be cash flow, and then secondary and tertiary are going to be the ability of principals and assets of the business. It's still a tough space from a credit standpoint, but getting better.
Joke's on me. I was waiting for you to jump in, Ross, with that. Okay, so I just had a question come in. Do you see a future in hemp tech that will be uniquely qualified to provide FinTech solutions or services that currently don't exist, including exchanges, blockchains, and collectives?
I do. And again, I think that's something we're seeing in all industries. And I don't think that hemp and more broadly cannabis will be excluded from that. So I do see a future in that. There are others that can speak better to the technical aspects of that, but and it's something we've talked about recently within our bank. What does all that mean for our bank, and how do we respond to it? And we're still trying to figure all that out.
Do you have anything, Tom, you want to add to that question about the?
Yeah, what we're seeing now is, one of the challenges we have is in the retail space for payment processing. And so now what we're looking at and seeing is more entrance into the POS space. So the old school, very expensive installed base POS systems that you see in like restaurants and some of the, larger big box retailers, those are giving way to these, tablet-based POS systems that have a lot of the technology in the cloud and not on a server base. And so because of that, prices are going way down, and there's a lot of entrance into the market. The challenge right now, frankly, from the bank or the payment processor perspective, when I look at different options, is that there's a lot of Me Too solutions out there where they're copying something out there that's maybe the bare standard, and they don't have all the feature functionality, and that's okay. But one of the things that we look at is, can we track the products? And this is where I think someone can do quite well, is if they have a truly integrated inventory management, SKU level data, so that it actually can be transmitted to the payment processor, so we can tie out particular products to the transactions and make sure they're not selling anything above 0.3% CBD or THC, excuse me, or other products that are not approved. And in retail environments, unfortunately, it's very challenging for us to monitor what they're selling, short of having someone in there every day, secret shopping, which obviously is not very reasonable. And so we do have some challenges in that now. And I think, frankly, the FinTech world can help us. And it may be a product out there already. It just hasn't been adapted to the hemp or CBD space yet.
Okay. Again, if anybody else has any other questions, Joel, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. I saw you're on. If you are, I'm happy to open a mic for you if you'd like. You good? I have to keep clicking back and forth. Okay.
Joel Smith does not have a question. That surprises me.
No, that was his question.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hello, Joel.
I'm glad he's on. I'm glad that he contributes. Okay. So, I had one other question that I saw just come in. Let's see, Michelle, what do you guys know, or do you know anything about the farmers.gov or the American Rescue Plan USDA program? That's the new funding program that just released, from what I understand.
I'm not familiar. I don't know if Ross may be.
I don't know. I'm familiar with it, but I don't know the details as well as our government lending group does. When we do government lending or government supported lending, fortunately, we have a team of experts and a vertical for government lending, and they are well versed in those details, but I'm more generalist.
There's quite a few questions that come in often, Tom, about transacting with crypto. Can you speak to that piece of it as well?
Well, so it's interesting. So that solution, and there's a lot of flavors of it too. Very much like us talking about POS for the retail world. There's a lot of products or services out there. I look at that solution, and maybe I'm looking at this from my own lens. So, but I look at that solution more for the cannabis space or the marijuana dispensaries in an attempt to create an electronic transaction type product or environment. And they're usually tied to a wallet and where someone basically buys crypto either and installs it in the wallet, or there's a transaction that occurs to fund a wallet and it's a, generally speaking, it's a card-based transaction that buys crypto, and then that crypto is used in that app. So as you can see, that would probably, and I'm going to get to my point in a second, that would probably be a cannabis-related transaction because of the nature of the card brands still looking at marijuana as an illegal activity because it's federally illegal. Now, shifting gears to hemp and CBD, I think there was a time where that made sense because it was so difficult to get a merchant account, and there was just so much noise in the market and so many banks coming in and out at different points that I could see someone in the hemp CBD space saying, gosh, I just need something that I can count on. And that is a fairly stable solution because of the nature of it, though it does start with a credit card transaction by the consumer initiating the purchase of the crypto. So, it's probably not the, perfect solution, but, with what we're doing with Westtown Bank and Westtown Payments, we're taking let's say the lack of transparency out of the underwriting and approval process for a merchant account. So if you're selling hemp or CBD, and you want to get a merchant account, we have a process for you to not only get a merchant account, but actually get banking services, traditional banking services that you'd enjoy if you were a bakery or a restaurant. And the process, we believe we've done a good job of laying it out, making it very transparent. But when you make it through the end of the process, you have a merchant account where you can accept Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover, in a traditional environment. And so I think for CBD and hemp, we're making a crypto solution less appealing. Again, for the marijuana industry, I think, void of cash, that probably is one of your better options.
Okay, so I see some questions coming in that I know had been asked previously about fees. Just curious about upfront fees, and I'm going to assume that you're asking Rudy for processing, or are you okay? So on the processing side, I know this is something that we get hit with a lot within the industry, being a high risk product. It is still high risk, but can you speak to fees, or is that something you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We publish our fees because our feeling is, again, transparency. Like we're trying to create as much comfort and consistency in the industry, and basically the best way to do that is saying, here's what we charge you. So we basically have 3 tiers of fees, and by the way, they are tied to the banking relationship because we are part of the bank. We want to say, okay, by bundling the services, the banking and payment processing services, and bringing your business to the bank, we would like, you'll enjoy better rates with us. And so depending on the amount of the deposit, our rates start at 4.99% and they go down to 3.99%. 29 cents a transaction is where they start and they go down to 19 cents. And then the other fee that everyone will care about is a monthly fee. So if you're at the 4.99% level, which is basically what we call our tier one, or the smaller merchants, there's a $150 a month fee, and that includes all the compliance services and everything we have to do in the background to maintain the accounts. And that goes down to $50 in the middle tier, and then $0 on the highest tier. So technically, if you're at the highest tier, you're processing at 3.99%, 19 cents, nothing per month. Now, you do have to maintain a certain balance at the bank to do that. And those bank balances, and honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they goes, I don't want to put it out there, but I know they're reasonable for a business. But we do, we look at this as a partnership. We don't look at it as we're being a vendor. And so we would like, to support your entire business as we can from any financial service we offer. And so we basically have a bundled program for that to induce that level of commitment from the merchants.
Cool. Ross, do you have anything you want to add real quick before we go on to another question?
Yeah, I'll weigh in on the tier pricing, and then I'll talk a little bit about our fees for deposit accounts as well, because I suspect I've seen some of the questions that were sent in advance. I know there's some questions about that, but yeah, the tiers, for tier one is under $100,000 in deposits. Tier two is 100 to 250, and then tier three is over 250 for the bundle pricing that Tom was talking about. As far as the fees for deposit accounts for our hemp-related business customers, we have tried to keep that very simple. We do not charge per transaction fees for our deposit accounts for hemp-related businesses. It's a flat $100 a month for the account that covers all the transactions, and then also covers our increased compliance costs, since it's still, again, unfortunately considered a high-risk industry by the regulators, and we do have more compliance requirements than we do for accounts from other industries. So flat $100 a month and no per transaction fees. And then we offer two levels of online banking / cash management. The first of which is sufficient for most of our customers, and that has no monthly charge. It allows for online bill paying, remote deposit of checks with just an image, and obviously view of all the transactions. And again, so there's no monthly charge for that level. We also offer a more robust version of online banking that allows for our customers to initiate wires and or ACH transactions online, and that one's $75 a month.
Awesome. Joel, I saw you have a question real quick. Did you want to ask it? Yeah.
So Tom, as you have a history as an angel, is there a time that you can see that the hemp industry will have hemp accelerators that are out there and aggressive in the United States? I know there's a couple of them that exist, but, and I know that we've talked about M&As earlier in the conversation, but when do you see there being kind of an active investor ecosystem building? Good to see you, by the way, buddy.
You too, brother. You too. Great question, actually, because I think that it has as much to do about the demographic of the angel group membership makeup, as well as the geographic location of that angel group. So I would suggest that an angel group in the Northern California region probably already has a lot of activity around this space, and frankly around the marijuana space, because again, where it is and how established it is in that state. Colorado, another great example. Ironically, I'm part of the Park City Angel Network up here in Park City, and a lot of the individual members have come out to me, through other channels, through catching up and just saying, hey, I have this portfolio of investments that they're already invested in, but they may not have come through the angel network, so I think that's the next, the next evolution is that now you have the managers of those networks actively seeking those companies. And I think it'll be more on the FinTech side versus just a straight, hey, here's a vertically integrated farm or producer and making that investment. I don't know if necessarily, I know there will be individuals who will do that, but from a group speak, when you put somebody out in front of the angel group, I think it has to be something that resonates with them. And right now, FinTech is very
Attractive,
commonplace, understood, and folks are getting much more involved in that. And I think InsurTech is probably the next frontier that will have a lot of disruption in the industry.
I'm interested in this. This is something that comes to my table a lot. And Joel, I'm glad you brought this up, but we get investment groups all the time, VC groups, angel investors, all different channels that are looking for education in, is this something that they're interested in? But Ross, I'm interested in your perspective as well, adding to this, on the investment side.
Right. Thank you. What we're seeing is at the higher levels, there are a number of private equity groups out there that are investing. Usually that's a little higher level than obviously what the angel investors would be involved in. And then for the really large scale projects, there's starting to be some market around bond issues. There's a company in Texas that is getting ready to go to market with $100 million bond issue. So we're starting to see a little more of that on the higher end. To Tom's point, though, I think where a company in the hemp industry can attract investment money, they really have got to be distinctive. There's got to be something clearly distinctive about them that will attract that investment money, because there are a lot of really good companies out there doing great work and making and selling great products, but in some cases it's hard to distinguish them. And so to attract that money, you really have to sell what's distinctive about your company.
I saw a question real quick about FDIC insured, right? It counts FDIC insured.
Yes, just like any other. Yep.
Perfect. What's the best process to getting finance for a startup? And I think we kind of started on that or touched on that, but can you guys give some? I mean, this is a topic we hit all the time within our association as we're developing new industries or new avenues and new businesses. So yeah, I'm curious, where do you suggest as far as that space?
I can speak to kind of the angel world, because I think, and people say, well, how do I, get my hemp startup funded? I'm like, how do you get any startup funded? Is really the $1 million question. So one, you have to be able to really explain your business and do it succinctly. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm a man of many words. So I'm not the best pitch person for any particular product. But when you think about your business, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old and they get it, you understand your business. And so that's the first part. The next thing is, it's just like, no matter how great of an idea you have, you can't really go to the VC world, the PE world with an idea, a sketch, even the best deck, right? They're down the line. You got to kind of think friends and family. And frankly, you also have to be invested in it. You got to put your real money in. I've always found that to be the first thing when I hear any angel pitch is, ask how much you got in your business. And when they say nothing, the conversation is actually over, because yeah, your time, energy, that's all great. No, how much skin in the game do you actually have? Because now you're asking me to take my money out of my children's education, out of my future or whatever, and put it into you, where you haven't put your own money in. And then really get to market as fast as possible with the product. that you can charge money for. That's always good. And even if you are losing money on the economics of the product, but you can show that people want it and they're going to pay for it, and then they want it again. Now you have something, and then you can go to the, so that probably, think about it, it's truly your own money, friends and family money, angel money, and that could be, some seed fund, VC kind of folks, and now you're, in lockstep now. But also know, once you get into that realm, you are giving up control. You're selling equity in your company, most likely. And once you do that, you really have to have your ducks in a row, because you're answering to somebody else. And so that I generally think that's the way to go. And frankly, we get approached by a lot of folks who have great ideas, great ambition. And I think this is probably a question that has come up and will come up. So I'll just address it now from a banking and merchant account standpoint. And arguably we are the only bank in market who is saying to you, if you come through our process and you pass our hemp compliance program, and then you are able to pass our KYC AML at the bank level for opening up a bank account, then we will open up a depository relationship with you, and then that opens a green field of other products. As Ross mentioned, ACH, wire services, online banking, and most importantly, merchant services, right? Being able to accept payments, credit card payments. If your business is at a point where it can't pay or the fees to open up the accounts and do the ongoing compliance, you're most likely not going to have the ability to buy product, pay for a website, fulfillment, customer service, all the things that go into just running a business. So we're not really set up in a way where we can really take those relationships on at this point. If you have the financial wherewithal, or you have a track record of experience and success, and you can basically make this investment in your business to open these accounts, but also create the infrastructure for your business to succeed, then we can talk to you, even if you are a startup, because you have the ability to support your business. And so, when people say to me, do you support startups? I say we do, but, and that's the but, it's do you have the wherewithal to take your business from this, very early stage to some level of sustainability. And so, a lot of our focus is on that in our compliance program, but it's also, on managing the rules that are in place, either state level or federally, for your business. But really, it's about, do you have the wherewithal to succeed or sustain?
Yeah. Awesome. Ross, anything?
I would just add to that. I think Tom is spot on about startups in the hemp industry. In a lot of ways are not entirely different than startups in any other industry. So what we would advise them is often very similar to what we would advise startups in any other industry. And there are startups and there are startups. And what I mean by that, there are some startups that come to us that are startups, but they are being started by folks with track records, successful track records, and having started other companies with successful exits or continuing to grow those companies. And then there are other startups where we have people that have a good idea, but have never started a company. And I always encourage those folks to look at what the resources are to help them get their business plan in place. Because without a well articulated and thought out business plan, as Tom said, you really aren't going to get out of the blocks. And in most communities, there are organizations out there to help people who know their trade but maybe haven't run a business before, to help them think through that process. And then the other thing I always share with people is, or always ask of people is, who are your mentors? Who are your mentors in this process? And unfortunately, I think that's a question a lot of startup business, a lot of folks that want to start a business miss. And the way I look at that is, smart people learn from their own mistakes. Really smart people learn from the mistakes of others. And that's a role that mentors can help play for people with their experiences. Is they've made the mistakes, and a good mentor is willing to share what those mistakes were and help other people avoid them.
Yes. So thank you to all of my mentors that are on this call, every one of you that show up here and help me through this and help our association, including both of these guys. And with that being said, this is not a plug, this is not promoted, but I bank with them and they've been phenomenally helpful for both me and anybody that we've referred to both of you guys. So thank you very, very much for that. With that little plug, they really have been fabulous. And not just you, but everybody on your team, every time I call, I'm like, I don't even know what this means. You guys are awesome. So thank you. On to the next is, let's see, expect 5 years. What do you expect as far as change in the banking for hemp and cannabis, but specifically the hemp space over the next 5 years?
Tom, do you want me to?
Well, I can speak to the payment side, but I'll tell you, what's really interesting is what's happened in payments in general because of COVID. So, and funny enough, Joel Smith was there with me when the first wallet was launched, and it was this wallet, and believe it or not, it was called the ISIS wallet. They changed that name quickly afterwards to something else, but it was a joint venture between the three big wireless carriers. I'm sure you guys saw the ads. And they had thought that everyone would love to pay with their phone because everyone carries their phone. And they thought, and all the businesses will, of course, adopt the new technology because everyone's going to be trying to pay with their phone. Those two things made their amazing investment worth zero because they had to change consumer behavior. And there was no impetus to do so. So, of course, we know COVID absolutely changed consumer behavior. It can change all our behaviors. And so the idea of not handing someone your credit card and them handing it back was really appealing. And so, contactless payments really took off. So, and so now, people actually know their Apple Pay works and they have this wallet on their phone and they can do these things where they don't have to pull out their credit card. They don't have to carry a credit card anymore. And I think that is actually what is going to change in a consumer behavior is that, the card will go away and it'll be your phone. It'll be, or your Apple Watch or whatever it is that you're paying with. So that's from the consumer side. On the business side, and I think it's absolutely all about the government and regulations because, I'm sure you all have some questions and you may be in multiple states on this call, and each state has its own rules. Utah has its own very unique rules around hemp and CBD that are much different than Nevada, and we're right next door, or Wyoming. And so, we have to keep track of that. And we have a great team of compliance experts who keep us up to date and keep our merchants up to date. And that's actually part of the ongoing cost because they track every one of our merchants' websites. They track what our merchants are doing. They actually track what our merchants said they were doing when laws change and say, hey, that merchant over here, what they were doing before when they got approved, everything was fine, but now something has changed. And we have to keep up with that. And so what we'd love to see, and let's, I'm putting my crystal ball up front, is that we have some kind of unified clarity on a lot of these laws. And actually, one, and I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to be, I'm not going to be happy I did, but I'm going to put it out there, is that Delta 8, when the Farm Bill in 2008.
We lost him for a second.
I'll jump in. I do think, can you hear me okay, man? Okay.
Yep.
I do think Tom is right. I should say I've been humbled by predictions enough. I probably shouldn't make them, but I do think Tom's right. Technology is going to continue to drive a lot of the changes in the banking industry, just as it will all other industries. I also think he's spot on about how advances in regulation and legislation will impact changes in the banking industry around hemp and more broadly cannabis, to include marijuana. I will say this though, there seems to be in some circles a sense that the Safe Banking Act that is in Congress now, awaiting some approval, is going to be a panacea for banks to get comfortable in the hemp space. And I don't think that's the case. I do think it will provide an added level of comfort to some banks. There may be more banks that enter the space who have been waiting on the passage of that act rather. But I don't think we should expect just a flood of banks entering hemp banking on the heels of that, for a number of reasons. We still will have the high compliance bar, and a lot of banks have just chosen to avoid that altogether. And I don't think the Safe Banking Act will fix that entirely. And then the other thing is, there are some banks, and I don't mean this to disparage competition, but it's just the reality. There are some banks that have avoided the space purely off of false paradigms. And legislation will not fix those paradigms. I think education will, but legislation will not. And so I do think, despite some tailwinds from a legislative standpoint, it's still going to take a while.
Tom, welcome back.
Thanks. I don't know where I left off. I was just getting warmed up too, unfortunately.
Tom, I just disagreed with everything you said.
Thanks for pinch hitting. Thanks for just stepping in.
I
echoed what you said and took it from there.
Perfect.
It was great. It was great. I don't know if we can touch on, we spoke a little bit about it before, but the Pact Act and impacting the hemp and cannabis industry. I don't know, Ross, if you can just add a little bit to that.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. I mean, for those that don't know, the Pact Act is the act that impacts essentially, among other things, but essentially shipping of vape products. And I do not have any legal background, but I do have some knowledge of the Pact Act and the impact on the CBD/hemp industry. And it does have an impact. And unfortunately, it was passed, I think, primarily, it was for nicotine products, but hemp vapes, hemp and CBD vapes got caught up in it. And so there's a lot of concern about the legality of companies shipping hemp vape products within the U.S. U.S. Postal Service has rejected it. There's concern about FedEx and UPS and others. And so there is an impact. I was telling Mandy earlier, just this week, I saw a petition being circulated by a lobbying group that is going to the Postmaster General to encourage them to exclude hemp products from that, again, with the explanation being that the real intent was around nicotine products. Whether or not that will be effective, I do not know, obviously, but there is clearly some pushback on that. But it is an impact currently. That said, we do have customers that bank with us that sell vape products, and we provide merchant services to them as well. But it is definitely something we keep an eye on.
Awesome. Thank you. Any complications or thing you want to address, Tom, about we kind of touched on the Delta 8, but the vape in general? I know that definitely changes the game when we're talking about the fiber or industrial production compared to the consumable vape and so forth. Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, we want to support the industry as a whole, but there are these certain niches of it that we have to look at. To Ross's point, we do have customers who are still selling vape products, but it's a very specific product and a very specific use case. And there also is it B2B or B2C? Because once it becomes a B2C conversation, it's much more I guess, in the teeth of some of these rules and laws when it's B2B, like we're just talking about, that act really is about the B2C target. And so some B2B customers can still, sell these products, but once it goes the next level down, it then has the scrutiny that that act, fortunately or unfortunately, has thrown upon it. And so we just have to be very careful. And that, when we, and I'm sure this will come up too, just as far as like the due diligence we have to do. I mentioned before, we have a 3-step process for someone to go through and basically have a relationship with the bank, a depository relationship. And the merchant services, how we treat it is merchant services is a product of the bank. It's a service, right, that the commercial team offers. It does have its own set of underwriting or compliance rules, but a lot of the work is already done by our hemp compliance program and then our commercial account team. What my team focuses on mostly is a series of questions that are I think, fairly elementary. What are you selling? Who are you selling to? How are you selling it? And what message are you putting out there to sell it? Are you making any claims? And so we do. I think a lot of folks, if they've gone through a merchant account application process in the hemp CBD space, that merchant account process can take weeks or months. Our process is actually days and maybe a week, because all the work, in my mind, has been done, the hard work, the KYC work, the hemp compliance work. Now we're really asking about your business model, your business plan. And so part of that is, what products are you selling? Do you have Delta 8 products? Do you have vape products? How are you marketing those? What are you saying they do? All that stuff. So it is a web, and there are layers to the questions. But frankly, we have some very successful folks who aren't selling either of those. They're not selling vape or Delta 8, and they're just doing an amazing job of getting the word out there and marketing a really high quality product. But to your point, yes, we're again, because of that law or the act and how it's been interpreted and now implied, we have to make sure that our merchants are abiding by it. And so that does cut out a lot of products that they may have been selling that were delivered through a vape pen or other vaporizing method. So I'd say that's where we are now. And but I think you can also all agree to this, and you can probably even educate me. There's a tremendous amount of legislation that is moving through federal, state, local levels that will affect our industry, and we do a very good job of keeping on top of it. But some things just kind of show up and surprise even us. And I think this situation we're talking about now was one that it was in the economic stimulus package in December, somewhere around page 3,000. I think they caught up to that sometime in January when it was, it's in there, it's done. So not much you can do about that.
Okay. Again, I'll throw this out. If you guys have questions that have come up that you guys want to ask, I'm getting down to the end of the questions. We are almost at 1 hour. I don't know where Tom and Ross, you guys are with time, but I've got a couple more questions to ask. And then I will stay on if you guys want to continue to talk or make intros or anything like that. But other than that, we will wrap up at about 1 hour, just so we can respect your time.
I had one thing I wanted to point out. It was actually off of one of the chat questions I read come up and down, and it was more specific, but I was thinking I'd just give an overall view because I think it'll be more beneficial to everybody. And it was about, if I sell to a farmer who grows hemp, do I need to go through this hemp program? And these are called hemp-related businesses. And then, of course, there's marijuana-related businesses, and sometimes they're both. We have a company that we service that's an industrial lighting company. Literally, the lights in my office they could have installed, but they also install lights in greenhouses. that grow marijuana and or CBD. And so those folks have, and they're a substantial company, amazing balance sheet, amazing financials, great business. And they kept getting kicked out of bank after bank after bank until they found us. And we've been working with them for years now. And that's a marijuana related business. And we support those. The question always comes down to, do they touch the plant? And how much of their business is associated with marijuana or hemp? Even if they're just hemp related businesses selling supplies, they're a plumber that services, the plumbing in a grow house, they're still under the same rules. I would even argue, your association, man. I mean, you're an association. Mm-hmm. You don't touch anything. You put people together, but mm-hmm. you're still considered a hemp-related business. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, the answer is you are considered that hemp-related business, but we can support you, and we can even support marijuana-related businesses. And it's really about whether they touch the plant or not. And someone will also raise their hand soon enough and say, "What about labs? What about testing labs?" Testing labs we consider to be a related business. Even though they touch the plant, that's not the product they sell. They sell data. They sell the reports. And so we can support them too.
Awesome.
I would just add to that. I mean, there's obviously, as is the case with most things, an element of judgment to that. I mean, you take that to the point where you consider John Deere tractor an indirect marijuana business if they're selling tractors to marijuana farmers, but that's not their primary business. So we use our best judgment to determine really what the focus of the business is. And to Tom's point, we do bank what we consider to be indirect marijuana related businesses, and the labs are a great example. The lighting company is a great example. But if it's not really central to their business, and they might at some point, again, I use the example of a tractor manufacturer, then we're going to use our judgment and say, no, that's not an indirect marijuana related business.
Okay, so there was a question. I don't know if there's clarification needed. Maybe Kevin, if you want to clarify, but why do they consider ancillary businesses under the MJ or hemp regulations? Especially something like my business.
Yeah, I'm in the waste management business, and I specialize in working with the marijuana and the hemp. And everywhere I go, they don't even ask questions. I'm just disqualified because of that.
Yeah, and I think Tom's point about handling of the plant is one of the key elements to that. We consider it a direct hemp business if it's anywhere in the chain where there's handling of the plant or products of the plant, from farming to retailers selling CBD products or other hemp related products. We do consider those to be direct. For indirect marijuana related businesses, the labs, for example, that we talked about, the reason we have to consider them indirect marijuana related businesses is we are expected to know what money comes into our bank that is the result of payments from direct marijuana related businesses. Doesn't mean we can't take it, but we're expected to know what is in our bank that's coming from payments from direct marijuana businesses. So, farmer gets their product tested, a marijuana farmer gets their product tested at one of the labs we bank. The lab would report to us that X deposit was from a marijuana farmer. So, and that's an expectation of our regulators and how our program is set up. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
I think so. I think that it definitely clarifies.
Yeah, that it was all about just trying to figure out how to find a way to deal with
banking.
That are banking.
You have your guys.
Right.
So Another question, and maybe this was already answered, but I want to clarify it for Nathaniel. Apologies if he's already missed this, but do you support tier 1 MRB businesses? I don't know what that means.
We don't. We support indirect MRB businesses, but if it is a grower, seller of marijuana, at this point, we do not support those businesses. It's purely indirect. So that's how we make the distinction, irrespective of the tier. Our distinction is whether it is direct or indirect, at least at this point.
Perfect. And then did we talk about how the third Banking Act, when we can expect it to potentially hit the Senate floor?
I take that to be the Safe Banking Act that we talked about a little bit earlier. And, I'll go back to my reluctance to make predictions earlier, but I bet on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So, my sense is that there are so many other issues in Washington right now that this is just not how on the priority list. I think it's going to have to. There are some folks in Washington that are being helpful. Rand Paul on the Republican side, of course, is supportive because of it being so important to Kentucky. But all that said, there seem to be so many other issues that Washington is focused on that it just continues to be put on the back burner. The Safe Banking Act was passed by Congress over a year ago originally, and then COVID hit, all the other priorities popped up. In my sense is we're kind of still in the same place right now. I think the hope would be that if it gets tagged on to something else, gets tagged on to some of these other priorities.
Cool. Okay. Anything else?
Tom, do you have a different view on that?
Yeah.
Joel Smith, who's on this call, moderated a panel that I was on in April of 2019, where I was so confident that the Safe Banking Act was going to pass. And now looking back on that, I'm foolish, but also, again, COVID, kind of hit in the middle of all that. So I can't make predictions. I think what Ross said, that it has to be tied to another initiative to get enough momentum to push it over. The House passed it with ease, but I don't know. The second step of this process is going to take a whole lot more bipartisan support, and who knows if it's there.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very, very much for joining. Are there any other questions that we want to wrap up real quick? And before you guys log off, I want to invite you to join next Thursday. We're going to be talking with a number of different farmers, large scale, small scale, commercial farmers, and talking about scalability and the viability of the market and how we position this. So I invite you guys to come back then. And then next Thursday, we're talking with Luke in textiles. And so next Friday at 1:00, next Thursday at 2:00. So I invite you guys to come and join, invite other people to participate. I will share the links here in the chat right now so you guys have them, but they will also come out. All of you that did log in today will get a transcribed notes or transcribed meeting notes, as well as the link for this meeting so you can rewatch it and see it. Okay, but anything else, you two, that you'd like to say before we sign off? And thank you very much for attending and joining. I really, really appreciate your time.
Just thank you all for taking the time and spending the hour with us. And I think you have both Ross and I's contact information. We're certainly happy to talk to you about your specific banking and payment needs, but frankly, we're also here for the industry. So if you have questions that we can help answer for you in general about anything we can do on the hemp banking, payment, finance side, we'll do our best to answer. But we're here to support the industry.
Thank you very much.
Just echo that. Good to be with everybody. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you guys. I just shared the chat just now for you guys to join or sign up for next Thursday's meeting. If you guys do need help connecting with either Ross or Tom, don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time. I'll share it with you. Ross, you are on. I want to thank you as well and your team. You guys attend quite a few of our meetings. So he's very in tune with what's happening in the industry and who to connect with, where people are. And so I really appreciate that. It's not just sitting at the bank waiting for us to attend. He really is actively involved. So thank you very, very much. Okay, other than that, you guys, thank you very much. We'll see you next Thursday.
Bye now. Thank
you
you
for joining.